in the colonies and their travel writings. So the act of traveling, okay, act of traveling, writing, itself is indicative of agency. Because women, of course, were doing something which was so unfeminine at that time, right? The course. So it is indicative of agency, a negation of traditional roles of domesticity, because she is not just freeing herself from these domestic constraints, but it's also because she's able to tell her story. That is why these writings are so important, especially at a time when we have so very few women telling their story. So why were women's presence necessary in the colonies? Because if you look at it, they were asked to come because they were seen as a deterrent for white men from entering into interracial marriages or sexual license with native women. There was always the fear that that East India Company officers, British officials, would enter into marriages or sexual license with native women. So white women, their wives, their sisters, anybody was asked to come and stay here in India as a deterrent. So, in a way, if you look at their role, their position in colonial India, the white woman was both an agent as well as a subject of imperialism. Okay? They were, in a way, colonized as well as the colonizers. They were privileged as well as restricted. They were acted upon and were acting. So they had to play a role which was expected, an ideal woman, and on the other hand, there was an agency to their act. Okay? Now look, the way they look at the place, this is what I mean by consumption of place. This is not my term, this is John Urie's term, consumption of the place, is how consumption is like, you eat it, right? Or you take it in, how you consume something, of course. So it is how you represent something, how you take it in, is what these writers were doing at that particular period of time. So the consumption of the place is based on the representing the Orient as either exotic, picturesque, or dangerous. These were the three ways, or primarily three ways, in which the Orient, the other, was being represented. This was a common thread, as I said, in spite of the differences in background and the class and the society that they came from. This was a common thread that united the early writings. So why was it that it was so stereotypical in a way of looking at the Orient of the other? It was more to satiate the curiosity of the readers back home. There was a certain expectation. This is how the Orient is. This is how the East is. This is how the other is. And these women were trying to just satiate the curiosity of the readers back home. And this I've explained already, a Eurocentric, Anglocentric perspective of seeing the Orient.